President John F. was shot. Music. Kennedy astounded the country. The loss of her husband was profoundly personal and devastating for his wife, Jackie. Music. She said the following regarding those last minutes. Everything changed when music was played on November 22, 1963. Even terrible, though, was what transpired after the cameras stopped filming. When Jackie passed out in private, a Secret Service agent was present. She confessed to him why she had remained in that blood-stained suit. Showing America what they had done wasn't the only goal. Something else was present, something she kept to herself. Her bodyguard kept that a secret for 60 years. He has now disclosed the reason Jackie never fully healed. Everything you believed will be destroyed by the truth about her last years. On July 28, 1929, Jackie Kennedy was born, although not where her parents had intended. A last-minute music change during a summer trip in the Hamptons brought her into the world at Southampton Hospital instead of the Manhattan Hospital, where they were originally scheduled to welcome her. Her mother, Janet Norton Lee, came from a wealthy banking, music family, and her father, John Blackjack Bouvier III, was already a rising figure on Wall Street. The Bouvier family had recently purchased a new home in Southampton that summer, and Jackie's birth became a minor media event. The family spent 14 days at the hospital, where her name was simply listed as Baby Girl Bouvier. Her surroundings was draped with affluence, even as a baby. However, her parents' marital problems had already started to surface. Her baptism was performed at Manhattan Street Ignatius Loyola Church, which is renowned for its opulent architecture and affluent membership. It was more than a religious occasion. It was a social theatrical performance. She was formally given the name G. Chauline. At that point, given that name in honor of her father, she was the first daughter in the family. Later, her funeral and confirmation would take place at that same church. In a life full of abrupt turns and emotional detachment, it became one of the few constants. At the age of 3, Jackie began riding horses. She was forced into the saddle early by her mother. According to Janet, a refined horsewoman with her own awards, it brought discipline and elegance. Jackie was already causing a stir at the Devon Horse Show at the age of 5, where she took home a blue ribbon. She was put in the under-9 class, which was picked up by music and social pages. Janet was able to boast even more about her achievements. For Jackie, however, horses took on a whole other meaning. They served as a barrier against domestic issues. Jackie held on to her pony, Buddy, for a sense of music control, because her father's drinking and gambling had begun to cause friction. For the rest of her life, horses remained beside her, not as decorations, but as a haven. The family moved out of the Hamptons in 1936 and into a large 2-story apartment on Park Avenue. James T. Lee, Jackie's grandpa, had created it. It appeared to be a dream house on the outside, but it was unfurnished. Despite his reputation on Wall Street, her father was already having financial difficulties. Through the empty rooms, Jackie and her sister Lee would go roller skating. Jackie showed off her cunning early on. She would sneak into neighbors' apartments and steal their toys by offering Lee little sweets as a bribe to divert their nanny. She would always have that kind of cunning independence. However, Behind the chandeliers and marble floors, things were collapsing. Her father's financial difficulties were made public. The publications printed his gambling debts and affairs. He was spotted with music chorus girls around. He was in danger of going bankrupt. The ranting behind closed doors was audible to Jackie. When her parents completed their divorce in 1940, music, everything reached a breaking point. She was only 11 years old. She turned to face her pony even more. She turned her back on her mom. Her love for her father never faded. However, the betrayal persisted. It influenced her perspective on men, love, and trust. She was 7 years old when her parents divorced in 1936. Music. 4 more years passed during the final breakup. Alcohol, mistresses, and embarrassing headlines had replaced John's charm. After the 1929 Wall Street crisis destroyed their fortune, Jackie was conflicted. She had an intense love for him. She was embarrassed, though. She and her music sister were compelled to have separate lives, alternating between the opulence of Manhattan and the seclusion of Long Island. Wire narrative cycled. It seemed as though she had visited, touched the textiles, observed the hues, and conversed with the ladies who wore them. She had, and it was evident. Jackie did something different, and at a time when the majority of women in the newsroom were limited to typing up party invites or wedding announcements. She had a witty voice. Her observations were audacious. All of a sudden, she was more than simply a girl with a camera. She was a perceptive writer. The coronation of From Behind the Curtain followed in 1953. Her articles were not just educational, they were also dazzling. She talked about the tiara's sparkle in the Buckingham light, the awkward smiles of foreign diplomats, and the uneasy tension in the crowds. Oh. Back home, readers had the impression that they were there. Her editors continued to give her projects and printed the music, even though they had no idea how she obtained half of it. Jackie was squatting in foxholes in Korea that year, carrying a camera, donning a helmet, and music crossing barbed wire. She had pleaded for the task. She went even though no one thought she would stay a day. She did not submit them to her article, despite being embedded with U.S. troops and witnessing artillery bombard hillsides while men smoked. The Times Herald's position on music was conservative. She took the photographs even though her editors wouldn't have ran them, captured the musical expressions of black women and men calling for equality. She concealed the drawbacks. Some were present, but she never failed to notice. Despite her inability to express it aloud, she was aware of her stance. She was also rewriting her mother's charity columns at the same time, juggling deadlines and dinner invitations. She had alternated between late-night typing sessions and diplomatic meals. Men referred to her as decorative, and she declined their marriage proposals. She desired more. She desired recognition for her actions, not the way she appeared. Sharp and always surprising. John F. Kennedy, a young senator, was asked what gave him optimism. Something changed as they continued to meet. At a dinner party, Charles Bartlett threw at Music 341 Q Street in Georgetown in May 1951. They had their first meaningful talk. Even on her honeymoon, the political wife submitted pieces to Women's Home Companion. She reported on hearings. She continued to write, In between 1953 music and 1960, she managed two lives, JFK's. Letters were written by Ghost, polished his speeches, wrote for Vogue about fashion. She authored a paper about the pillbox hat in 1957. It was more than a fashion statement. It influenced a time period. She was 8 years old in 1960. 1957. John Jr. The world watched on November 25, 1960. Although those infants were included in the campaign, Jackie took great care to protect their privacy. She was aware of the price of fame. Everything changed when she was appointed First Lady in 1961. But she carried with her the instincts of a newsroom. For the first time, she appointed Pamela Turner as her press secretary. She put stories where they would be most helpful, restricted access, and managed photographs. Her cover for Life magazine became the year's best-selling issue by 1962. With the $50,000 ensemble that caused outcry, she had transformed fashion into strategy. It contributed to a 15% increase in U.S. fashion exports and was 80% American-made. Fluent in French, she accompanied Charles de Gaulle on a tour of the White House. She was the smartest American he had ever encountered, he said. It was dubbed Camelot by reporters. She referred to it as her work. She continued to write and shape without ever stopping. Monaco and Liechtenstein were interviewed for the book about European royals that she never published. She was aware of what she was giving up and what she was constructing when JFK proposed in 1953. The pearl-encrusted, white-gloved woman the world witnessed had formerly squatted in the Korean trenches. She had smuggled civil rights images past her editors. She had resisted males who didn't respect her opinion, typed by candlelight, and struggled for a byline. Jackie Kennedy did not notice a house steeped with American history when she entered the White House in January 1961. There was hardly any evidence of the presidents who had resided there, including faded walls and mismatched furnishings. It was hollow. She secretly put together a fine arts committee under the direction of Henry Francis DuPont because she was determined to change it. Their objective was straightforward yet massive: revive the White House's spirit. They started looking through historical groups, private collections, and even foreign auction houses. Jackie herself into the spotlight in 1962 when she placed a bid against Sotheby's for a desk that had belonged to Thomas Jefferson. Music. Although the $25,000 price tag was staggering at the time, it was invaluable to her. She didn't stop there. For the benefit of the country's memory, she urged affluent benefactors to part with their antiques. The White House gradually transformed into a museum that chronicled the history of the United States, room by room. She then allowed the nation to enter. Jackie made an appearance on a television tour of the recently renovated White House on Valentine's Day in 1962. She leads the country through its most historic chambers without any commercials. She pointed to the Jefferson desk, the Madison dinnerware, and the Lincoln bed while she spoke quietly. She had battled for protection. 56 million viewers were present. 1 out of 3 Americans. Approximately $1 million in donations were received. The world listened. Jackie was the only First Lady to earn a Special Trustees Award from the Emmys that year. On her behalf, Lady Bird Johnson accepted it. Nobody had anticipated what Jackie had done. Her use of television, not for music, politics but for remembering had transformed a government edifice into a shared cultural treasure. The change had already been felt in the White House's East Room a few months prior to the broadcast. In November 1961, Pablo Casals, the well-known chist who hadn't played in the U.S. since Franco came to power in Spain, was hosted by Jackie. For years he had been on an unofficial blacklist. Jackie was unconcerned. Still, she invited him. He performed Mendelssohn's Schumann Couperin for 200 people that evening in a politically charged atmosphere. Even if it meant hurting influential individuals, she wanted the arts to be free. She asked Leonard Bernstein to write a mass for the National Cultural Center the next year. She was leaving a legacy of bravery, song, and quiet. However, something terrible was developing beneath the glitz and charm. Jackie gave birth to Patrick Bouvier Kennedy, a boy, in August of 1963. At 34 weeks, he arrived early and weighed only 4.10. He suffered from respiratory distress syndrome. Babies born that manner had limited chance of survival back then. 3 days later, he passed away. The general populace hardly knew. In order to prevent Jackie from seeing the coverage, President Kennedy had the television taken out of her hospital room. Jackie silently fought Addison's disease, a rare illness that sapped her energy, while she mourned the loss of her child. Nevertheless, she continued to work, rebuilding the White House, running the Cultural Center, grieving in private, and continuing to serve the people. Jackie took on something that few people were aware of that same year. She wrote and revised pages about historic items for the White House guidebook, which she directly edited. She ensured that the Lincoln music portion was flawless. The manual went on to become a bestseller. It changed the way the White House communicated with the public and increased funding for music preservation. She would use that ability in her new life as a book editor in New York years later. However, it all began there, in the midst of her own misfortunes, as she silently created something that would endure. Then came November 22, 1963, the saddest day. Dallas. Jackie was dressed in a raspberry-colored pink Chanel suit with gold buttons and blue accent. It matched the hat. Then came the shots. The back of President Kennedy's head was broken by one bullet. Blood spattered Jackie's clothing. She remained the same. That's how she boarded Air Force One. Refusing to take off the soiled clothes, she stood next to LBJ as he was sworn in. Her icy response to the question was, "I want them to see what they've done." The suit is still kept in an archive until the year 21,003. It is the most eerie ensemble in American history. Jackie remained at Parkland Hospital. When the physicians had done everything they could, she still grasped her husband's hand. Clint Hill and Roy Kellerman, 2 Secret Service men, remained near her while she repeatedly whimpered, "I love you." They shielded her from cameras, reporters, and even reality. She remained by the stretcher long after he had left. She was unable to talk. Her children were all she asked for. The trauma persisted. The shot was still audible in Jackie's dreams, she subsequently admitted. In private recordings, she added, "The shot rang forever." She exhibited every symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder, according to therapists today: emotional numbness, flashbacks, insomnia, and music. Her family attempted to assist. She was protected by her mother. However, Jackie kept that anguish with her for the remainder of her life, hidden in letters, and it was evident in the way she went through the world, quiet, vigilant, wounded, just 3 days after the assassination, organizing every aspect of the funeral. She insisted on a horse without a rider. She insisted on a flame that would never go out. More than 1 million people lined the path on November 25, 1963. 3 million more watched TV. The eternal light was ignited by her. Blackjack, the horse, did not have a rider during the procession. There was a dead president. A wife's music-lit tale rocked the world. His interpretation ran counter to the single-bullet idea put forth by the Warren Commission. It turns out that his music silence had been as lengthy as Jackie's. Jackie attempted to start again after leaving the White House. She relocated to New York from Washington in 1964. The widow's annuity was rejected by her. Charity was not what she desired. She desired meaning. She started as a music consultant editor at Viking Press in 1975. She assisted with the publication of about 100 publications, memoirs, history, and art collections over a 19-year period. She even prevented the demolition of Grand Central Station by using her power. She later became a member of Doubleday. Her first significant achievement there was a Michael Jackson manuscript that went on to become a bestseller. Her personal music life remained problematic, but she became a mentor to writers and a guardian of stories. She wed Aristotle Onassis on his private island in 1968. They were printed by Hustler magazine. They proliferated everywhere. There were rumors that Onassis had leaked them out of retaliation. Jackie was devastated. She had a long-term connection with John Warnicka, who had planned JFK's burial. It was revealed about the same time. They had a covert affair for nearly 4 years. Just before she wed Onassis, it ended. She would subsequently claim that she believed she had compromised her husband's memories. Her career as a music editor reached its zenith in the 1980s. She worked on rare memoirs and historical collections at Doubleday, and in 1982, she even negotiated a contract with the Nabokov estate. Prestige came with that acquisition. Jackie managed to stay out of the spotlight while juggling editing meetings, literary scouting, and raising John Jr. and Caroline. Music. Paul Landis then gave another speech in 2023. He told the whole truth about that bullet. It wasn't merely a piece of music. He had shifted it, and it was entire. Both historians and conspiracy theorists were shocked by his disclosure.